Sorry, I had to take a quick snack break. Had to get some Cheetos down, you know what I'm saying? In the last video, I seen some stuff about some torture things, right? And how I said it was interesting. Well, that stumbles into this new video that we're gonna watch today. The worst punishments in human history. Now, I've seen this guy before. Don't know his name. His name's Good Enough. Pretty funny guy. He does all these drawings and shit, and it's hilarious. So we're gonna watch it. I'm sure it's gonna be totally fine.
Let's start with the bad and slowly work our way towards the stuff of nightmares. Number 10.
Bad to
the Rat
nightmares?
Dungeon. If you were alive in London, England during the medieval period, you would have definitely heard about the Rat Dungeon.
Oh, hell no.
This punishment struck
Don't like
paralyzing
it.
fear into the hearts of even the most hardened criminals. This was a cell that was located at the bottom of the London Tower, where prisoners were shackled and chained
Hell
in
no.
complete darkness. But here's the thing.
Dude, that's already bad enough. You know what I'm saying? Complete darkness, like you can't see shit. Like, doesn't your mind go insane in the dark like that? Like, if you can't see nothing, right, and you just pitch black dark, and you're left in there for like days and shit, doesn't the human mind go crazy? I think I've seen something on that, or something like that. I don't know.
The dungeon was connected to the nearby river and just below the river's waterline, so that when the water levels rose, all the rats that lived along the riverbed would be pushed out of their shelters and forced to swim downstream.
Oh, hell
This
no.
would of course lead the hungry and angry rats towards the entrance of the dungeon, where they would then come face to face with the prisoner.
Oh,
But to
hell
the
no.
unlucky prisoner, he never actually saw anything, and all he would hear were the soft scurries of the rats' feet entering the dungeon.
Oh, hell
And
no.
in a matter of minutes, these soft noises were in the hundreds and all around him. These
Hell
angry
no,
and aggressive
dude.
rats would then begin to take small bites from the prisoner, who had no way of defending himself.
Oh.
Now, he might be able to shake the rats off for a few hours, but eventually the prisoner would pass out from pure exhaustion.
Dude.
And while he slept, the rats would continue to take bites from his flesh.
Oh my
Eventually,
God,
when he would wake
dude.
up, he would discover hundreds of bites throughout his entire body. But it didn't stop there.
Dude, that'd be
The
that's
prisoner was left here for days
insane.
or weeks on end, depending on his crime. But towards the end of the medieval period, this form of punishment just got more and
But
more.
dude, okay, what if you're there for say you're there for a week, right? Like a little slap on the wrist, 5 days even. What if the water doesn't rise, and you're just chilling in the dark? Would they just make you stay there until the rats show up? Like, what if you just what if you just got lucky? You know what I mean? That'd be pretty insane, actually. You'd be like, I survived the rat dungeon,
range,
bitch.
eventually becoming a form of execution, where prisoners would just be thrown in the dungeon and forgotten about. Number 9, the
Oh,
rack.
fuck.
This was yet another punishment that
Hell
took
no,
place in the
dude.
London Tower. The rack was a torture device that was used in many places
Oh.
throughout history.
I can already
form
see
of
where this is
punishment
going.
was originally designed for getting a confession, usually
Dude.
from criminals, slaves, or prisoners of war. The device looked like a large ladder,
Bro.
but instead of secure steps, they would actually rotate like a rolling pin. You see, when a prisoner was placed on the rack, he would have his feet and wrists tied to a ratchet pulley system, where 2 legal officials would slowly tighten the
Legal.
ropes and locking them in place, placing an increasing amount of strain on the prisoner's shoulders, hips, knees, and elbows with every single turn.
God,
This
dude,
was all
that's
done to get
so
information, but
brutal.
of course, a lot of the times the truth was not accepted as reality, and the prisoner would then begin
That's
to
so
say what
fucked, dude. That's so fucked. You're put on there to confess some shit, and you tell them the truth, and they still be like, nah, that ain't it, chief. That ain't good enough. We're just gonna get us an extra few cranks. Fuck those guys.
whatever he believed the officials wanted to hear. Sometimes it would work and the prisoners would be let go, while other times they would be tortured even more for lying.
Oh my
When
god,
the whole ordeal
dude.
was over, prisoners were usually released with dislocated joints.
I bet.
Oftentimes, they were left completely paralyzed. That was the case in England in 1447 when a 25-year-old girl named Anne Askew would be tortured on the rack for hours and hours. on
Hours?
end and left completely paralyzed after all her joints were dislocated. She was then carried on a chair and burned alive at the stake.
Talk about kicking a man. Well, a woman kicking her while she's down. Holy shit. Not only are you paralyzed, bitch, get off my grass, peasant. let's burn this bitch alive. Fuck it.
All this because she read and memorized
Dude.
scriptures from the Bible, which she preached in private to a small group of women, which were the exact women she refused to name and expose during her torture.
Bro.
You see, during this time period, if you followed any religion other than the Catholic Church, you better not say a word to anybody, including
Hell
her
no,
own
dude.
husband, which was the person that turned her in. Number 8.
Oh, snitch, bro. Snitches from back in the day hit different.
Keel hauling. This brutal punishment was carried out at sea on sailors who would steal or be violent towards others
that's-
and would
that's
usually
fair.
result in death.
How do
Keel
people
hauling would start with a sailor
Bro, how do people find this shit out? Who lives to tell the tale? That's some Pirates of the Caribbean shit right there, dude. Who lives to tell these tales?
having his arms tied with a rope, then looped around the entire circumference of the ship before being tied off to his feet. The sailor would then be thrown overboard while the group of men on board pulled on the rope to slowly drag him around the outside of the ship, including over the keel, which is how this punishment gets its name. But a lot of the times, the sailor wouldn't even have to worry about it, since they were dead before they ever reached it. Kinda just depends on how hard the guys on the rope feel like working that day.
Oh my
Not
god.
only would the sailors be drowning and getting their backs and necks broken on the keel, they were
Jesus.
also getting sliced apart like a cheese.
God, the barnacles. I didn't even think about that, dude. Oh, dude. Fucking A. Dude, the barnacles go crazy. Die of infection, right? Raked to shit, cheese grater style, by some barnacles. Or neck / back broken over the keel. Your survival rate isn't looking very good, is what I'm trying to get at.
Greater by all the sharp barnacles on the outside
Jesus,
of the ship.
dude, that's
But if by
crazy.
some miracle a sailor actually happens to make it all the way around the ship without dying,
That'd be nuts.
one of 3 things will happen.
Oh, so you would just go down, under, and back around. Well, it sounds like a fast death, honestly.
1. He would be sent for round 2 and for sure be dead by then. 2. Be freed and allowed back on the ship.
Brother, I don't care what you did. I don't care. You could have killed a man, right? Which back then, obviously, they didn't really give a shit. If you managed to make it all the way around, who knows how long this takes, by the way, too. If you make it all the way around through all that shit, and you can still walk and talk and be semi-functional, buddy, you've earned your spot on the ship. I'm gonna be real.
Where he would then slowly die to infections.
Okay,
Or
that makes
3,
sense.
live the rest of his life single and being made fun of, since he was now fully covered in scars from head to toe.
Yeah, bitch, I would not
Number
care.
7,
I would
crushed
not
by
care.
Elephants. Now we are getting to the part of the list
Crushed by elephants? This would be good.
where living is no longer an option. This form of punishment has been used by many countries
Buddy, we
throughout
are-
history, but was most recently used by
we're
India
3
the
in right
19th
now.
Century, which is really not that
Living
long
is
ago
not
when
an
you think
option at
about
this
it.
point?
Like,
What the
your
fuck?
great grandma could have witnessed one of these. What type of crimes would you have to commit to be crushed by an elephant, you might
Please
ask?
tell me.
Well, apparently if you failed to pay your taxes, that was good enough. And of course,
Bitch.
stealing or being an enemy soldier was also a great way to become a tortilla.
Bro.
But the most disturbing case in history was when the 4th Mughal Emperor of India ordered an enormous amount of criminals to be crushed to death in a single day, simply because he was bored and needed some entertainment.
That's
The
crazy.
guy who forgot to pay his taxes, crushed. The man who stole an apple from the local market, crushed. The little orphan who jaywalked across the street, crushed.
Dude, oh my god, dude, this bitch is crazy. See, that's why you don't ever see these things nowadays, because people aren't no longer bored. You know what I mean? They got technology and TikTok and shit.
The man who murdered his neighbor and added his remains to a large pot of tomato soup, then fed that soup to his family and watched them eat it from the shadows with a creepy smirk on his face. He's alright. Apparently he makes a damn good soup.
Bitch, what?
There are a few ways that this public execution goes down, but one thing always stays the same. There's always a guy on top of the elephant controlling its every move.
Oh, yeah,
And
of
this
course.
was very intentional. Because
Psychopath.
this was meant to showcase just how amazing the ruling class were. I mean, look at them. They can control an elephant. Now be impressed. The first
Or be
method of
crushed.
execution was the one that you better pray for if this was going to be your fate. Here, the criminals would have their arms tied behind their back and their
Dude.
heads placed on a pedestal, where it was then crushed like a grape by the elephant's foot. Now, the second method is much more cruel. The criminal would be
What?
placed flat on the floor with their arms tied behind their backs. Then the elephants would be guided to walk over the person's body, and hopefully the criminal would die on the first go. But sometimes they just end up crushing a leg.
Dude, dude, not getting crushed on the first go round, bro. Oh, brutal. Dude, like, step on my noggin. Make that shit squish like a watermelon. You know what I mean? Like, get it over with.
Or an arm. So the elephant then has to make a U-turn and try again and again and again. The final and worst way is when a highly trained elephant was guided to slowly crush the person limb by limb. They would first crush the arms,
Ow,
then the legs,
ow.
and then poke holes in them with the tusk until eventually dealing the final blow to the head. or
Dude,
torso.
oh
This
my
is the more theatrical route that
God.
rulers like the fourth Mogul love to take, and made for a truly traumatizing experience for everyone. Except for the
Dude,
fourth Mogul.
holy
He
fuck.
loved it. Number 6.
That's crazy.
Impalement. Probably one of the grossest and most cruel forms of
Oh, I
punishment.
know. I think I've seen this one
This
before.
has been used by a few countries
God
throughout history,
damn.
but was most recently used
Brutal.
in Egypt in the 17th century, usually against criminals that were highway robbers, grave thieves, or anyone who would try and start a rebellion. This punishment was started by having a criminal lay flat on their stomachs with their arms tied behind their back. They would then be sliced open with a razor to increase the size of their back door. And as soon as that incision
Buddy, you're telling me they were going to put this steak of Homeboy's buffle. You're telling me they're going to have this man sit on this shit, essentially. I got to watch this.
was made, the cut would be lathered with paste to instantly stop the blood. They would then thrust in a long wooden stake that was the
Why his face look like that? Why his face look like that? This is not for enjoyment.
width of a man's arm, which was sharply tapered on one end. They then begin to hit the wooden stake with the mallet, pushing it further
Buddy. Oh my god. Just fucking pow. Pow. Oh, like driving a stake into the ground, dude. Holy jeezums. That's just not okay, bro.
and further
Fucking
in.
A.
And of course, the stake was greased up beforehand.
Buddy, that thing had layers of grease on it. You know, how? Dude, after the first hit, I'm already like, you got me.
I won't have it again, officer.
Process a lot smoother. And once the stake has popped out of the criminal's shoulder, head, or mouth, they were pretty much long gone.
Yeah,
It was
I'd
then
imagine.
planted next to a busy road,
Okay.
like a Halloween decoration,
That's-
to remind
is
everyone that this
crazy.
is what happens when you break the law. They would be left
This kid's scarred for life.
But wait, there's another version of this as well.
What?
You see, on some occasions, the criminals would only be impaled just deep enough to keep them in place, but not too deep that it would cause immediate death. They would do this by having stakes that had a seated position on them to prevent the person from sliding down any further. They would then be
Would that
placed
be
on a
possible?
busy road where they would suffer for hours and hours, pleading to people walking by for help, until eventually succumbing to their wounds. Number 5.
Probably would pass out.
Poena culae. Poena
Who?
culae is Latin for penalty of the sack.
Okay.
And that's exactly what it was, just a lot more terrifying and cruel. This was an
Okay.
exclusive punishment
I don't know
for
how this
anyone that
one-
would murder their own family members.
Okay.
This was
Probably
first
worth-
seen in the 2nd century
probably deserved.
in Rome, but would later be used by the Germans in the 18th century. This all begins with a convicted murderer being placed inside a thick leather bag.
Okay.
But just to make sure the man isn't lonely, they would then add a dog, a rooster, a viper, and a monkey. I don't know what these animals did to deserve this, but hey, at least the evil family murderer doesn't die alone. Once all the animals are added inside the bag, it is then sewn shut, creating an almost airtight seal. Now you would think this would be horrible enough, but no, this is just the beginning. Because as soon as
Honestly,
the
doesn't
bag
sound
is
that
sewn
bad.
shut, it is then tossed into the ocean. But don't worry.
Why is so right? What the fuck did these animals deserve? What the fuck, dude? That's crazy. It don't sound that bad. And then they throw them off into the ocean.
Later on, these murderers would be given the option to either be placed inside the leather bag or be sent to perform at the Colosseum. where they can perform the act of being mauled to death in front of all of their loved ones and peers. You know, at least they had the option.
What would you pick, bro? Honestly, what would you pick? I think I'm gonna go with drowning. You know what I mean? I feel like that's just the there's no logical answer, but I feel like that's the better option.
Number 4, rats. This is one of the most
I've
sick
seen this
punishments
before.
in all of human history, and it involves the use
I
of rats.
think
I
it's
will cover
if it's
two
what I
of them
think it
here,
is.
as they are very similar. The first use of this form of punishment dates back to 1568 during the 80 Years' War.
What sick bastard? Okay, Diederik. Almost looks like it says Sony. Sonoy. Diederik Sonoy. Did I say that right?
A Dutch leader named Diederik Sonoy would
I'm not bad. Anyway, what did this dickhead come up with this for?
often use this method of punishment, which involved placing a rat inside of a clay bowl, then placing it topside down
Yep.
on a prisoner's stomach, chest, face, or groin. Then the back of the bowl
Yep.
would be heated with either a
I've seen
torch
this
or
before.
some coals,
I haven't
causing
seen
the
it,
rat
but
to go into a full-on panic,
he's
trying
just
to
shit.
escape from the heat. And its only way out
Is
to
down,
burrow
yep.
into the human.
That's
Once
crazy.
inside, it would continue to chew and tear apart whatever was in its way, desperately searching for a way out. Eventually, the rat finds its way out of the maze and survives. The same could not be said for the prisoner.
Dude, do they actually do that? Like, is that something the rat would do? I mean, I guess anything to survive. But dude, that is insane behavior.
But the second method was much
Why is there always two
worse
methods to this
and
shit?
was highly secretive, since it was used under the guidance of the dictator Augusto Pinochet, where he held power from 1976 through 1983.
Bitch, that's
They
recent.
called it the rectoscope.
I think we all know where this is going.
And I'm sure you have already figured out where this is going. It's exactly what you think. They would place a tube on a prisoner's back door, then insert a rat inside of the tube. The rat would then begin to burrow its way in. These people were so sick that they actually expected the prisoners to answer questions while this was going on. Eventually,
Buddy, I don't think the rat would do anything, though. You know what I mean? I feel like they would just be like, well, I'm kind of stuck. And then I feel like they would eat their way out of the pipe. I guess if it's like metal, I guess not. I don't know, dude. I feel like that's just, no.
the rat would find its way in and begin to move forward to find its way out. Nobody really knows how many people died from this punishment, but we do know that a ton of people went missing when this dictator was in charge. Number 3. Gibbeting. The last known use was in the early 1900s in Afghanistan. This all came to light in
Gibbeting.
1921 when the National Geographic published
Just gonna hang
this
people in the
image their
cages?
magazine.
Yeah.
This was also used in the United States from time to time during the 17th and 18th century. One notable example was in Boston, Massachusetts,
Hell
where
no.
a few pirates were hung at the Boston Harbor,
I was gonna say,
which
it's-
served as a warning to any sailors that were
Oh,
approaching
well, you're already
Boston.
dead, though.
Now let's talk about England, since they love this form of punishment so much. In England, this was used on traitors, murderers, pirates, and thieves. But after the year 1752, the Murder Act was passed, which required that all convicted murderers must be put to death by being publicly dissected.
Dude, oh my god. Dude. Brother. My people in the UK. What the hell is wrong with your ancestry, bro? You guys just went over the top with fucking these punishments, dude. Holy shit.
Or by giving
Crazy
of some sort.
motherfuckers.
And over 134 confirmed people met this fate. The most common form of gibbeting were actually cages, and they looked like this. It was an all-steel
Just
cage
big
that
enough
was
for
shaped
you.
tightly to the form of a human body.
That's
Which
crazy.
was so tight that it would not allow the person inside to move. They were then hung 30 feet or more off the floor, usually on a public road or water hole, to ensure that the most amount of people could witness this
Dude, oh
monstrosity.
my
But I
god.
can only assume this was more annoying than anything.
Dude, I
since
was
every-
just about to say, wouldn't that be annoying as fuck, dude? If you just had some, I mean, I know they're suffering, but god damn, bro. Like, just shut up. You know they're screaming the whole time, bro. I'd be like, dude, get this fucking guy out of here. Dude, that's sick behavior, how I just thought of that. But, dude, I'd imagine it would just be so annoying.
Every time you get thirsty and needed to fill up your container of water, you would have to deal with the dying man begging you for a sip.
Yeah, exactly.
But the annoyance and torture of the public didn't stop there, because after the criminals would die in the cages, the body would be left inside to rot for years and years on end.
Years?
With the locals complaining that the smell of death was so pungent that they couldn't even sleep at night.
That's
There's
terrible.
even been reports that some human remains stayed inside of these cages for over 20 years before a government official would finally remember to clean it out. Number
20
2, scaphism.
years?
This was a form of punishment that was
The
used
fuck
by
was
the
that?
ancient Persian Empire on anyone that would be convicted of murder. First, the criminal would be placed inside of a boat on their backs and tied down. The boat had
Dude,
four
could
holes
you imagine? Could you imagine if this is what we did to murderers nowadays? No one would commit murder. Dude, there would be so many people alive in this world, dude. Oh my god.
cut out
I'm
so
just
that the
saying.
person's arms and legs would be outside of the boat and in the water. They were then force-fed large quantities of honey and milk until their
Ugh.
stomachs were visibly full. They would then proceed to lather
very
their entire
filling.
body with the milk and honey as well. After all these steps were completed, he was then pushed out to the middle of the lake where he was completely exposed to the heat of the sun. But the sun would soon
Just
become the
baking.
least of his worries.
Baking
You
in
see,
that
the reason
bitch.
they fed him milk and honey was not because it was a great last meal, but because this combination causes a person to get extreme diarrhea, which mixed with the sweet honey attracts
What? Really? Milk and honey makes you shit.
rodents, bugs, wasps, bees,
Oh my
flies,
God.
and whatever other animals live near the lake. After being tormented by the animals throughout the entire night, you would think that the daytime maybe gets a little better.
Dude.
No. Because as soon as the sun rises the following
Oh
day,
my
the
God.
person inside of the boat gets another gigantic meal of milk and
Hey, yo, you ain't had enough yet, motherfucker? Get you some more of that shit.
honey and an additional lathering. This would be
Dude.
done on a daily basis to prolong the punishment for as long as
Dude,
possible.
like I feel like one night is good. You got the point, right? Depending on what they did. If they keep doing it, extend it by all means. But bro, goddamn.
It was also well documented that the rodents would continuously attempt to burrow inside of the person through their back door.
Oh,
They would
all right.
probably-
They love the back door, but they love that shit.
Trying to get a head start on their next meal.
Okay.
A writer named John Sonaris wrote in great detail about one of these incidents. He would go on to say that it was one of the most horrid and cruel forms of punishment since it was
Clearly.
terribly long and seemed to have no end in sight. He wrote about a man who survived for an entire 17 days before he finally died from his wounds.
17. Bro, cap me off. Buddy, I would be trying to flip that thing and drowned. 17 days? They wanted that motherfucker dead, dude. Holy, they want to say, I want to see this shit work. That's
Apparently, the man
nuts.
spent his last few days with his entire face completely covered with wasps,
Yes.
and his flesh rotting away, filled with swarms of parasites and worms, all while being covered in his own filth.
Dude,
Number 1.
that's terrible.
The oubliette.
The-
Oubliette simply means to forget in French. This
Oh,
was a
hell
punishment
no.
that was used in many places throughout history, including in the London Tower, which had a small
Buddy, homies in the UK. What the fuck is wrong with you guys?
which had a small and confined room called Little Ease. Not only was this room pitch black, it was also so small that prisoners could not sit, stand, or lay down while inside it, and they would be left in this uncomfortable
Dude,
position
oh my
for
God.
days on end. One of the most famous oubliettes is not the one in the London Tower, but in the neighboring district of Warwick, inside of Warwick Castle. Here, deep underground in the castle's dungeons, is a very small and narrow cell,
What the
completely
fuck?
made of stone, which has a metal door to close it shut.
Of
Prisoners
course.
were tossed inside of the cell and forgotten about, as the name implies. The prisoner would just have to sit there and wait for their inevitable death.
Dude, oh my god, bro. How long would that take if you just got thrown in a cell and you knew you were there to just die? Dude, what would you do? I'd be asking for some Uno cards or something, bro. Like, give me something. Yeah, I'm gonna die. Like, give me something to do. I will play Uno 1,000, 100,000,000 gazillion times before I fucking die. I will be happy with that.
which usually came in a few days from dehydration or starvation. Now, of course, this would be the best case scenario, because in reality, most of the time there would already be a rotting corpse inside of the cell to keep the new prisoner company. The previous occupier of the cell
Hell
would
no.
serve as a daily reminder of his upcoming fate. But
Dude, that would just get, it's, what? It's bad enough already. Get fucking John out of here. Get John Smith out of my shit. Like, I'm trying to die alone here. Ah, damn.
that's not the only companions that he will have,
Oh,
since the
fuck.
underground dungeons are completely infested with rats that
Oh,
have
my
developed a taste for human flesh.
fucking A.
But wait, there's more. These oubliettes existed in many of the castles throughout Europe, and in recent times they have actually discovered these dungeons with dozens, if not hundreds, of human remains inside of it, as proof that they were hardly ever cleaned. Like in
damn.
Leith Castle of Ireland, where in 1900, during the castle's renovation, a worker found a small opening behind a wall inside of the chapel. This hole had an 8-foot drop that led to a large oubliette, and what the worker found inside shocked him, since it was filled with so many skeletons that they needed multiple cartloads to clear it all out.
Oh
But
my
just when you think the
God.
section is over, it just keeps on giving. You see, there's been many stories of men who have been
Dude,
placed inside
what the
one of these
fuck?
dungeons and kept alive for years and years on end.
Years?
Surviving off crumbs of food and minimal amounts of water, prolonging their inevitable demise for as long as humanly possible. These cells were sometimes even placed on ground level so they can hear the voices and laughter of the people outside, an experience that they will never get again in this lifetime.
Oh my god. Bro. Homies in the UK. I think they won the war, won the race. God damn, dude. Holy shit, bro. That is just not okay. Fuck. That was a good video. W video. That was sick, literally, and physically and mentally. We ain't shit now. These motherfuckers back then. Oh fuck. You better not do nothing wrong, goddammit. You better not speak in the name of Jesus. Cut your finger off day by day, make you swallow them whole. Fuck. Or some shit, I don't know. Stretch your arms out to be above your head. Fuck. Well, I hope you guys enjoy this video, because goddamn, that's nuts. Go ahead and think about that overnight, why don't you, while you're trying to sleep. And think how good your life is, because it could have been this. But as usual, hope you guys are having a good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time of day it is for you guys. Hope it's a good one. And I'll see you guys all in the next video. See you later.